Hey guys, this is Anastasia. I wanted to do a video in honor of motherhood because Mother's Day was yesterday. Um, and every time I kind of sat down to discuss it in one way or another, hell would end up being where I would go to. And it makes sense. She's my matron goddess. I do view her kind of as a mother of sorts. But I took this as kind of a shout out that, hey, yeah, do a video on me. So I'm going with it. At first I was kind of looking to, and I will be working with these videos the way that I work with the Canunos videos, or the way that I want to, which is if a lesson pops up to me, a theme, an aspect, what have you. If something hits me in the head like, this is what I'm supposed to talk about, that's what I'm going to do. But for this first video, it's really just going to be a witchy ramble about hell, because every time I kind of tried to sit and I'm like, okay, this is what's really coming through to me, then suddenly I go off on another tangent. It's like, okay, this is what's coming through to me, and then another tangent kind of happens. So I kind of just said, whatever it is you want me to put out there, that's what I'm going to talk about. So hit me. So we'll see what happens. When it comes to hell, there's just so much to talk about. There's so many aspects. That are there's so much to her that is written about, that is out there, that is quote unquote traditional. But when you begin to work with her, there's so much more, and it's so much that isn't really talked about. Chris Ashburn actually really got me thinking about her compassion, because she commented the other day on a post I had put up, stating, hell is very compassionate. Even when she's laying down the law, it's still, at that base, it's still compassion. And I couldn't agree more, absolutely. And no one discusses the kind of compassion that hell shows, or hell has. I know when I first started reading about her, one of the lessons that I read on some website, I of course don't have the website's name right now, one of her lessons to teach apparently was teaching about compassion without being involved. So like, you can feel compassion or empathy or what have you for this other person without being dragged into whatever drama they're going through. And I somewhat see that. I can connect to that. I've certainly learned a lot about filtering and understanding what does need to be taken on, what does need to be left behind, and that definitely helps with your perspective and kind of helps you with finding the balance in a situation. But oftentimes, at least with personal workings within me, it becomes so much more about digging in there, getting your hands dirty, understanding, dealing and confronting whatever drama may have been spurned or come about because of this issue, and understanding the drama, and understanding, is this something that really is important? Is this really something that is a thing? Or is it just random drama that needs to be fleshed out and let go of? You can't really know what is important and what is needing to be let go of until you confront it, until you embrace it, until you acknowledge it. So much I've learned from hell has been simply acknowledgement. So often I feel like the harsher things in life we look at and we go, okay, yep, that happened, that sucked, move on. And that's not really learning. That's not really growth. It's struggling and it's strife, and we're all going to do that. I'm terrified of death. There is a reason for it. And every time I'm confronted with a death cycle, it doesn't even have to be a true physical death, it could just be a death cycle. My first instinct is to run for the hills. That is a thing. It is certainly something that she has pointed out to me, and that I am working on with her. It is definitely a process. But so much of her is, here's something that, at least for me, here's something that you're not comfortable with. Here's something that scares you. Look at that. Analyze that. Put that in front of the mirror and really see it for what it is. Why does this scare you? What does this do to you? And why does it do that to you? And her reason for showing us that, her reason for shadow work, I find, for me so far, by no means am I saying this is true for everyone that works with hell. In no way am I saying this is how you have to work with hell. It's simply what I have learned this far in my journey. And who knows? A year from now, I could look back on this video and be like, what the Hades was I thinking? That's ridiculous. It could happen. But for right now, in this snapshot of my life and in my practice, so much of the reason why she shows me those things and kind of puts me into that shadow work and forces me to not just see something, but to truly acknowledge it, to truly give it its time, give it its honor, is because so much of your life is stunted, or is harmed, or stopped, or halted because of fear. My fear of death is just the easiest thing for me to use as an example. If I spent my entire life fearing death, I really wouldn't do much. Like, if I truly let that rule me, I certainly wouldn't have a daughter, because do you know how difficult childbirth can be? Do you know how difficult carrying a child for 9 months can be? There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things in my life that I wouldn't do because there's too much risk. And when there's risk involved, there's a potential for death. And in that fear, you wouldn't risk anything. You wouldn't take those chances. You wouldn't go out and explore. How much of your life would be stopped because of this irrational fear? Because honestly, to fear death, I think is pretty basic. It's understandable. But in the same breath, why do you fear something that is inevitable? Something that is going to come, something that is going to be here. I can give you a million reasons why I fear it, but I can also acknowledge that it's rather pointless to fear it because it's going to happen. So instead of fearing it and trying to hide from it and trying to run from it and getting nowhere, because no matter what, it's going to be there, the only thing that running or trying to hide from it will do is keep me from experiencing things that will make this life experience memorable and honoring, or I don't know how to properly say it, but at the end of the day, we have this incarnation, we have this life experience. At the end of this life experience, regardless of what comes after, it's over. To let a fear control you so that you don't make the most out of this life experience is not giving honor to that which gave us life. It's not giving the universe its honor. It's not giving your parents their honor. It's not giving we should give everything we can to this life experience, because we don't get a second shot at this one. That is what hell is teaching me when she forces me to look at the shadow, and she forces me to embrace it and understand it more. It may not conquer my fear. I may not ever get over my fear of death. But at least acknowledging that it is there and embracing it what little bits I can at a time, it helps. And it pushes me through the darker times. It pushes me through those spirals and shoots me out the other end to acknowledge the positive. Because if we're stuck in the negative all the time, we're going to miss so much positivity that goes our way. And really that, to me, leads back to compassion. She wants me. And really, I feel everyone, but I get nervous speaking for others. But really, her teachings of don't let fear rule you. So much so that I am going to force you to deal with these fears and come out the other side to, A, show you that you are in fact strong. That's another whole other video for another time, is her empowering, because she is so empowering to me. Her idea of sovereignty over self is something that's really new for me, and it's very cool. But yeah, when she forces me to look at the shadow and embrace it, it's not about putting me through Hades and back just for shits and giggles, just because she can. It's, dude, deal with this shit. Look at it. Acknowledge it. Give it its time. Give it its honor, because even negativity deserves some amount of acknowledgement, because you can learn from it. It can mold you. It can guide you. It can give you insight. It can give you wisdom. If nothing else, it's an experience. If nothing else, somewhere in your mind, when you go through a shitty time in your life, you go, wow, this sucked. Why did this suck? Because X, Y, and Z. Okay, I'm going to learn that when X, Y, and Z comes back into my life, I need to learn how to deal with that shit. I can't run away, because it's just going to put me in the same predicament I was in this time. So it should be acknowledged, it should be embraced, because it's something. And everything can give us insight and wisdom and a connection of some sort. So there's that. But also, for us to look at something we fear in the eye and learn from it, even if you don't conquer it, but to learn from it, and then to move on with life to something a little bit greater, something a little bit better, I think is one of the greatest things that we can do. To look at myself in the mirror and see all the flaws that I have. At least to me. And trust me, I got a list. But for me to look at myself in the mirror and go, okay, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And I'll hear all these bad things and all this negativity, because it does. It plays in my head. But then to say, you know what? Although I see all of that, I also see a heck of a lot of good. And if all of this stuff really bothers me, I can work on it and try to get better about it. Or I can sit here and just constantly relive all these horrible thoughts about myself. And I'm not getting any better. I'm not doing anything with that. I'm just making myself feel like shit about it. And there's no reason for that. And it seems real basic. It seems real, well, duh. But through that, through that process, through that experience, I'm able to look back, even in that same day, look back and go, just because I had that acknowledgement, just because I had that moment of, yeah, I'm not too happy about this, that, and the other thing, but it's getting better, or maybe I can work on this more, or maybe it's just something I've got to embrace and deal with, that I'm always going to feel this way about myself, but it doesn't need to control me. That is the point of my shadow work with hell thus far, is acknowledging, giving it its honor, the things that I can conquer, getting power from that, feeling empowered from that, but then the things that I can't conquer, at least not yet, not just giving them that acknowledgement, but also living past that control. Giving it its acknowledgement and saying, yeah, this is a shortcoming I have, but then letting it constantly control me. I didn't give it its proper acknowledgement. I didn't give it its space. Because if I had, I'd be able to say, okay, I'm not going to let you control me completely, because I'm going to learn from this. That's where my acknowledgement comes from. And when I've been able to do that, because that certainly is not an everyday thing, there's quite a few days I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I get on that precipice and I'm about to take that leap, and it's like, nope, never mind, I'm out. I can't do it. It's a work in progress, and it's okay to not conquer everything, and it's okay for things to come back, and it's okay for all of that jazz, and that's another point where hell might be standoffish. She might be quiet, perhaps even cold. There are times I feel as though she is gone. But when I fall, when I stumble, when I have those moments of, I have completely lost control of this and I'm spiraling, she has been there for me. And she has shown me compassion. And she has shown me warmth. Even if it is just enough compassion and warmth to hit me upside the head and say, this is not who you are. Snap the fuck out of it and get back to work. Not necessarily that she swears. I'm just putting it into my terms. And I apologize for swearing. But, yeah, she just... Is she warm and fuzzy? Absolutely not. There's a lot of harsh realities that she forces you to look at, but the realization that it is for the quote-unquote greater good. And the quote-unquote greater good isn't, hey, if you look at this, everything will be perfect. No, it's about balance. Like, if you were to have to, and I hate doing this, I hate when people have websites and it's like, here's this God, here is what they are in charge of. Like, I mean, it's great for a foundation, and it's great for a nerd like me who's never heard of a god or goddess before or an energy before, and they Google it, and here are 5 or 6 really nice, neat little bullet points to start with. But some people, they don't view it as starting with it. They look and, nope, this is exactly what this deity is for, and it's like, absolutely not. That's a jumping off point, sweetie. That's the foundation. You build upon that. There will never be enough aspects, correspondences. No book could possibly hit every mark that everyone has ever felt with an energy, a goddess, a god, the fae, the elements, what have you. Because for every one traditional correspondence, there is probably thousands of personal correspondences that people feel, and you can't put it into words sometimes. But if I had to give her one aspect or one lesson or one real connected thought in dealing with hell, it would be balance. And that's why she does so much of the teaching that she does and guidance that she does. Is it the greater good isn't about things will be brighter, things will be better. Sometimes no. Sometimes that's not what the balance is about. The balance is about pain, and it's about heartache, and it's about hurt. But it's about understanding that every time you go through that pain and heartache and hurt, there will be those positives too. Hell isn't about making everything better. She is about, I hate saying, she can be about, that's probably a better phrase. I don't believe hell is about making everything better. I believe, for me, at this point, hell's lessons for me and journeys for me and what have you are very much about seeing the reality of the situation and making excuse me, the best of it that I can by doing what's right, not what's easy, not what's fun, not what feels good. Sometimes you have to do what you are meant to do, or what you are supposed to do, or what you should do, versus what you want to do, what you wish you could do, what you would hope you could do. And in doing what is right as opposed to what is fun has rewards that you can't foresee. It's like that butterfly that I talked about in the spirit animal video for the butterfly, where, you know, the caterpillar doesn't know it's going to turn into the butterfly. I read that on that website, and it blew my mind. It's like, you're absolutely right. Just some animals have that instinct of, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I have to do, this is where I need to be at this time. And humans, we like to, but I really want to do this, but I really like doing this. You know, I don't want to be here, I'd rather be there. It's like, well, that's great. I would like to call in to work because I want to sleep in. But I've got a kid that I've got to provide for. I've got things, you know, I've got a shelter I need to pay for. I've got food I need to put on the table. I've got things that I need to do with that money. So I can't sleep. And that's a real basic thing, but I mean, that's what balance is. It's not about making things pretty and nice and comfortable. It's about embracing the uncomfort that we have to sometimes feel to understand that although we may be uncomfortable now, there will be a moment of comfort later to balance this. You can't have light without dark, and vice versa. You can't have the bad without the good, and vice versa. I think a lot of times with how people focus on her crone aspects so much, and understandably so, that they are a thing. But what she constantly is reminding me of is, yes, she is about destruction at times. She is about death. Yes, she deals with harsh realities. Yes, she can be cold and reserved. Yes, she is a crow. And yes, she does deal with shadow and dark. But you can't have shadow and dark without the light. You can't have the crone without it connecting to maiden. You can't have destruction and death without rebirth. And that is her domain. That is where she is. She is that balance. She is that connection between one as it passes into the other. She is about transition. She is about transformation. She is about seeing through all the muck and all the bullshit and getting to the heart of the matter, not because it will make everything better, but because it is what is. and it is what it needs to be to uphold the balance. Sometimes we're going to go through the dark. Sometimes we're going to go through the shit. And the important thing is to acknowledge it, embrace it, see it for what it is, try our best to deal with it and go through it. And when the time comes for us to come out the other side, wow. When the time comes to come out the other side, be grateful for the experiences, even the negative, even the dark, because that is what leads you to the light. That is what leads you to the positive. That is what connects you to everything. I can't have compassion for another person unless I can put myself in their shoes sometimes. The best way to put yourself into someone else's shoes is to acknowledge that you've been where they've been. When someone hits rock bottom, the best way to have compassion for that person and to show them patience and to show them kindness and to show them respect is to remember your experiences in that same darkness, in that same shadow, and say, you know what, I've been there and it sucks, and I'm here to help you through it. I'm here to look through all that drama that you have spinning around you that you feel you can't control or get through. I will help guide you through that because I feel for you, because I know what it's like. Because I can deal with the death and destruction with you, alongside you, and know that you will come out the other end and experience this rebirth, and it will be glorious and beautiful. And sometimes that person you have to say all that to and kind of guide through is in fact yourself. And if you are someone that works with Hal, or with any god or goddess, not that you have to, you certainly don't have to work with deity, but if you do, a lot of times as you're talking yourself through those battles, they often are right there behind you, cheering you on. You might not feel them. You might not hear them. But my experience thus far has been, every time I have gone through the muck and mire, Cernunnos and Hel, my ancestors, my wolf, and I'm sure many, many others that I am not aware of, have been there holding my hand and having my back. So yeah, those are just some of my lessons and impressions and connections to Hel as of today. I guess really this video is about balance and finding your way through the dark to the light with her. I don't know that I could sum it up in a nice, pretty phrase, but that's the best I can do right now. So blessed be.